71% of this planet is covered by water, and almost all of it is a place no human has ever seen. We have detailed maps of the surface of Mars. We have photographs of the far side of the moon. But the floor of our own ocean, the thing sitting a few kilometers below the boats we sail every day, is largely a blank. Today we're going through 5 facts about the deep ocean that sound invented, but come straight out of the scientific record. We're talking about a weave worse than another planet, animals that build their entire food chain without a single photon of sunlight, pressure that would crush a submarine like an empty can, rivers and waterfalls that exist underwater, and sounds recorded from the deep that took decades to explain, with a few that nobody has explained at all. Some of these numbers are so far outside normal experience that they stop working as numbers, so we'll translate them into things you can actually picture. By the end of this, the ocean is going to feel a lot less like scenery and a lot more like a place. Let's get into it. Fact number 1, we have better maps of Mars than we do of our own. This sounds like the kind of line someone made up for a documentary trailer, but it holds up as long as you're careful about what means. Orbiting spacecraft have imaged the entire surface of Mars, and large parts of it are down to a resolution of a few meters per pixel. Our ocean floor is a different story. Seawater is nearly opaque to the radar and laser instruments that make planetary mapping easy, so you cannot photograph the seabed from orbit. You have to go there, and you have to bounce sound off it, ship by ship, line by line, at roughly the speed of a boat. As of the mid-2020s, an international effort called Seabed 2030 had brought the share of the ocean floor at high resolution to somewhere around a quarter. The rest is known only from low-resolution satellite gravity measurements, which infer the shape of the bottom from tiny bulges in the sea surface above it. That technique is clever, and it's good enough to find undersea mountains a kilometer tall, but it would miss most things smaller than that. Whole features get discovered by accident. In 2005, a United States Navy submarine, the San Francisco, struck an uncharted seamount at full speed south of Guam, killing a crew member and very nearly sinking the boat. The mountain was simply not on the chart. There's a matching gap in who has actually been down there. Well over 600 people have traveled into space. The number of humans who have reached the bottom of the Challenger Deep, the lowest known point in the ocean, is in the low dozens. For decades after the first descent in 1960, that number was 2, and it stayed at 2 for 52 years. It's worth sitting with the shape of that. The deepest point of the ocean is about 10,900 meters down. If you could pick up Mount Everest, all 8,849 meters of it, and drop it into the trench, the peak would vanish underwater with about 2 kilometers left to spare. Fact number 2, there is an entire food web down there that does not use the sun. Everything you were taught about where energy comes from starts with sunlight. Plants catch photons, everything else eats the plants or eats the things that ate the plants. Sunlight effectively runs out by about 200 meters of depth, and below roughly 1,000 meters there is no sunlight at all, ever. For most of scientific history, the assumption was that the deep sea must therefore be close to empty, a cold desert living on scraps drifting down from above. That assumption collapsed in 1977. A research submersible called Working Along the Rift found hot water venting out of cracks in the, and clustered around those vents in permanent darkness was a dense community of animals. Giant tube worms, some of them 2 meters long, with no mouth and no gut at all. Clams the size of dinner plates, crabs, shrimp, whole colonies of things thriving with no connection to the surface. The energy source turned out to be chemistry rather than light. Bacteria at those vents oxidize hydrogen sulfide, the chemical that gives rotten eggs their smell, and use it the way a plant uses sunlight. The process is called chemosynthesis. The giant tube worms don't eat in any sense you'd recognize. They house billions of those bacteria inside their bodies and live on what the bacteria produce. Away from the vents, the deep sea solves the darkness problem differently by making its own light. Researchers at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute went through decades of video from the water column off California and found that around 3/4 of the animals they observed could produce light. Bioluminescence isn't a rare curiosity down there. It's the normal condition. Animals use it to lure prey, to startle predators, to find mates, and in at least one case to cheat. Some dragonfish emit red light, which most deep-sea animals cannot see, giving them what amounts to a private searchlight in a world where everyone else is limited to blue. Fact number 3. The pressure at the bottom is difficult to describe without sounding like you're exaggerating. At sea level, the atmosphere presses on you at about 14.7 pounds per square inch, and you've never noticed it. Water is far than air, so it stacks up fast. Every 10 meters you descend adds roughly one more atmosphere. At 100 meters, you're at 11 atmospheres. At a kilometer, you're near 100. At the bottom of the Challenger Deep, you are under about 1,100 atmospheres, which works out to somewhere around 16,000 pounds per square inch. That's about 8 tons pressing on every square inch of surface. The usual comparison is 50 jumbo jets stacked on top of a person, and honestly the comparison doesn't help much, because a person under those conditions isn't crushed the way a car is crushed in a scrapyard. Your body is mostly water, and water barely compresses, so the parts of you that would fail first are the parts with air in them. Lungs, sinuses, the middle ear, those collapse. Water itself does not get off entirely free. At the bottom of the trench, seawater is compressed by roughly 5%, which means the deep ocean is measurably denser than the water at the surface. If water were truly incompressible, sea level worldwide would be tens of meters higher than it is. Life adapted anyway, but with a hard ceiling. Deep-sea fish accumulate a molecule called N-oxide, TMAO, which braces their proteins against being deformed by pressure. The concentration they need rises with depth, and the mathematics runs out at somewhere around 8,200 meters. Below that, a fish would need so much TMAO that other basic chemistry stops working. That prediction was made from theory, and then the ocean confirmed it. In 2022, a team filmed a snailfish at 8,336 meters in a trench off Japan, the deepest fish ever recorded, sitting essentially exactly where the theory said the limit should be. Fact number 4. There are rivers, lakes, and waterfalls at the bottom of the ocean, not as a metaphor, as actual bodies of water with shorelines, currents, and surfaces you can watch ripple. This works because seawater is not one uniform substance. Water that is colder or much saltier is denser than the water around it, and dense water sinks and pools and flows downhill exactly the way water does in air. In the Gulf of Mexico, ancient salt deposits buried under the dissolve into the water above them, producing brine so salty it can be 4 or 5 times the salinity of normal seawater. That brine is too heavy to mix. It settles into depressions on the seabed and forms genuine underwater lakes, with a distinct surface, a visible shoreline, and waves that break when a submersible drives through them. They are also lethal. One such pool, found in 2015 at around 1,000 meters depth, was nicknamed the Jacuzzi of Despair by the researchers who described it, because the brine is anoxic and toxic, and the seabed around its edge is littered with the preserved bodies of crabs and amphipods that wandered in and died. The waterfalls are larger still. Between Greenland and Iceland, in the Denmark Strait, extremely cold, dense water from the Nordic seas spills over an underwater ridge and plunges toward the Atlantic floor. The drop is roughly 3,500 meters, and the flow is on the order of millions of cubic meters per second. By volume, that underwater cataract dwarfs every waterfall on land by orders of magnitude, and virtually nobody has heard of it because there is nothing to see from the surface. These flows are not trivia. They are part of the global circulation that carries heat around the planet, and a single parcel of water can take something like 1,000 years to complete the full loop. Fact number 5. The ocean makes noises, and we recorded several of them for decades without knowing what they were. Sound behaves strangely in seawater. It travels about 4.5 times faster than in air, roughly 1,500 meters per second, and it loses energy far more slowly. There is also a layer at around a kilometer of depth, called the SOFAR channel, where temperature and pressure combine to bend sound waves back toward the middle instead of letting them escape. Sound entering that channel gets trapped and guided and can travel for thousands of kilometers. Whales appear to exploit this. The system that recorded these sounds was not built for science. It was a Cold War hydrophone network laid down by the United States Navy to listen for Soviet submarines, and when parts of it were opened to researchers in the 1990s, they started hearing things they could not identify. They gave them names. Julia, slow down, train, whiz. And in 1997, the loudest of them, an extraordinarily powerful low-frequency sound picked up by sensors more than 5,000 kilometers apart, which they called the bloop. Because its profile had some organic character to it and the volume was far beyond any known animal, the bloop spent years as genuine cryptid material. That one has an answer now. Further recordings around Antarctica matched it to icequakes, the sound of enormous ice masses cracking and fracturing as they break away, an event powerful enough to be heard across an ocean basin. Several others were similarly resolved as ice or volcanic activity, but not all of them. First recorded in 1991, is still being detected, and while it seems to originate near underwater volcanic activity in the South Pacific, no one has confirmed the mechanism. And then there is the 52 Hz whale, first tracked in 1989, an animal that calls at a frequency far higher than any known whale species uses. It has been followed for decades. It has never been seen, never identified, and as far as anyone can tell, nothing has ever called back. So there you have it. 5 facts about the ocean sitting right there on the same planet as you. We have roughly a quarter of the properly, and fewer people have stood at the bottom of it than have gone to space. There is a complete ecosystem down there running on chemistry instead of sunlight, and most of the animals in the water column make their own light. The pressure at the bottom is around 8 tons per square inch, enough to compress the ocean itself by 5% and to impose a hard depth limit on what a fish can physically be. There are salt lakes with shorelines and a waterfall 3.5 kilometers tall, all of it underwater. And there is a hydrophone network still picking up sounds that we have been listening to for 30 years without a confirmed explanation. The part that gets me is how close all of it is, not light years away. A few kilometers straight down, underwater you could sail across this afternoon. If one of these surprised you, let us know which one, and consider that the next map correction, the next new species, the next unexplained recording is probably already sitting in somebody's data waiting to be noticed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.